it was a bell curve kind of the level of teenage anxiety, depression, suicide, pre-smartphone, and then post-smartphone. And from the moment the smartphone was invented and became more common, it is high into the right. Oh, hey. I was over searching for a photo on my phone. Oh, Chris. Producer Chris.
No, I think this music matches the theme of today, of our topic.
It does. That's fair.
That's
fair. It does match the theme of our topic today.
Techie right there. All the sounds.
Yes. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of our On Purpose Parents podcast. Kurt Johnson with Grace Yoon.
Hi, everybody.
Producer Chris in the corner. There he is. We're going to jump right into it today.
Let's do it.
As some of you have been listening for a while know that we will every now and then, usually after a longer series or a shorter series, but usually after a series, we will do some Q&A. And then after that, which was our last episode, we did a Q&A, but there seems to always be one question that requires more than just a drive-by answer.
Right.
Has a little bit more teeth to it. So we thought today would be the day that we would dive into a deeper question, and each of us will share 2 or 3 thoughts.
Yeah.
There's nothing new under the sun. We're not experts on any of this. If you've been listening for any period of time, you know that. We're not experts. We're just fellow parents who are in the journey. Grace, obviously, earlier in the journey with
11 and 8-year-old.
Going into JHM, going into our junior high ministry at our church.
Yes,
this Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Very exciting.
By the time this particular episode airs,
She would have gone.
She will have already been there.
Yeah. Time travel.
Wow. That is time travel. And Chris, are you reading the question? I don't even know what the question, I mean, I don't know how the question's worded.
Our episode title is Navigating Your Child's Digital World. So just that you guys would give some tips and some strategies to the parents.
So it was based on a question a parent must have had about help, my kid's addicted to technology.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly it.
Yeah. It's a big topic.
Their phone is attached to the hip. By the way, before we jump into it, it's not only our kids.
Yeah.
My wife and I we drove with another couple friends last weekend down to San Diego on a Sunday night of Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
And we were going to go to a birthday party and then stay there because the party was all the way down in San Diego. And we're about 40 minutes outside of town on our way to San Diego. And I suddenly realized, oh gosh, I don't have my phone.
Really?
And my buddy was willing to go all the way back. It would have been an 80-minute detour to go back 40 minutes and then 40 minutes back.
Right.
And my wife was like, oh, I think we should. And I said, we can't. Like, I cannot be the guy that can't go 28 hours without his cell phone.
So what did you do?
We just kept going.
You did?
And
wow. Good for you.
I was a nervous wreck the whole time. I was like, It was also oddly freeing. It was also oddly freeing to not
for
really
like 2
worry
minutes.
For about 2 minutes. Yeah.
Tina and I, we just rewatched Jumanji, the newer one.
Yep.
And there's a character in there who doesn't have her phone, and it's the one she turns into Jack Black. But like during that part, she just kept saying, I need my phone. Where's my phone? And then they met some guy who got sucked into the game from the 90s. Oh, and his character's like, does a phone mean something different in the future?
Why do you need your phone tied at your hip?
That's funny. No, well, not long ago, I was watching some documentary, and they had a quote from somebody, a scientist, an inventor. It might have even been like a guy from NASA back in the 50s, I think it was. And he was predicting in the future, our telephones will be able to go wherever we go, and you'll be able to work remotely. He was saying this stuff like in an
sounded
interview
crazy back then, right?
in the 50s.
Yeah.
And sure enough, here we are, ruled by technology, it seems like. And mostly has made our lives better.
Yeah.
And has
a lot of
with it,
wonderful
like
things.
a long tail of consequence.
Yes, exactly.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to give just a few thoughts.
Yeah.
Grace, you're on the front end.
Yeah.
Do either of your girls have a cell phone yet?
They do not.
Your
don't.
Your 6th grade girl.
I know. She's asking already. So when can I get one? Or like,
How hard is she? How diligent is she asking?
it's becoming more consistent.
Yeah. Is
more
that because
and
her
more.
friends all have them?
They don't all have them yet, but as she starts to get involved in more activities, right, there is more things of getting connected where the students get connected via email or via chat or via this. And so just the very platform of being involved
Yep.
is through technology.
Yes.
So if you don't have technology,
Yep.
she's like, well, what do I do? And we're like, that's a good question.
You know what's been fascinating to me too is the technology boom has really been mostly isolated to like computers and our cell phones and iPads. And that's where the majority of the attention lies. But this is not apples to apples, but it's been interesting to see technology leak into another area. And that is, in our area at least,
Okay.
the world of e-bikes.
Oh.
And how, like, that's technology, right?
Yeah,
An
it is.
electric bicycle is technology. And within the spell of 3 years, maybe 4 years, if that, it's almost like every single junior higher has an e-bike.
Really?
My wife and I were
wow.
driving
I didn't know that.
from the beach the other day, and there was this group of junior high kids coming zipping down their e-bikes. And there was one poor little sucker pedaling away, pedaling as hard as he could to keep up. And we're like, "Oh, buddy, sucks to be you, man."
I know.
Like, your parents
You're behind
love
the
you.
curve there.
But
yeah.
it's just another piece of technology and how quickly
Things can change.
things change and how quickly we all adapt to. I have to have this convenience.
Oh, yeah.
I have to have this technology in my life.
Or this level of connection. It's not
Yeah.
just entertainment. I mean,
Right.
technology is how we do our work.
Right.
It's how we function.
Yep.
It's how we're doing this podcast. You
Yep.
know, it's all
Yep.
around us. And I think we're not going to get into all the things. I mean, we talked about this last week as well. I mean, this could be. I mean, people write books about it.
Yeah.
People go to conferences about it.
So
there
we're
are
not-
whole
we're not-
organizations.
We're not going to talk about like Teslas versus what's internal combustion engines. We're not
Yeah.
we're not going to go. We're not having that debate, Grace.
We're not today.
Wind power versus
Yeah, I know.
versus nuclear power, and why nuclear power got a bad rap
I
because
know.
it's actually super clean. We're not going to talk about.
We'll
none
do
of
that next week.
Okay.
No. But we do want
You've been watching
to.
Rogan a lot recently, haven't you?
Who? Oh, Joe Rogan.
Yeah. We were just talking about
Yeah,
that.
we have been called the Joe Rogan of parent podcasts.
I have heard that as well.
which means it's a little bit too long.
We're a little winded.
We're a little long. We're likable.
I guess.
But that's about the
Oh,
only.
you guys are more than likable. It's totally lovable.
And by the way,
Who doesn't love
when
you
I
guys?
Oh, my
say
goodness.
when I say we've been called the Joe Rogan of parenting podcast, that was producer Chris.
Yes. Like 10
Hoping-
minutes ago, right
yeah.
before we
You
started
don't
this
need to
episode.
say that part.
Hoping to
pump
get a
us up.
free lunch out of us or something. I don't know. Okay, well, Grace, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
We've been joking around. We're really
Yeah.
talking about cell phone technology, the always connected,
Mm-hmm.
social media, iPads, that dilemma that
Right.
so many parents, almost every parent of a preteen and teenager is navigating.
Yes,
What
right.
are some thoughts that we might share to help parents navigate that is really
Right.
what we're going after today.
Yeah. So one of the first things that I wanted to share was a mindset thing, and to treat and appreciate technology as a tool. I don't think we need to belabor the point at all that technology is all around us. It's something unavoidable. And sometimes I think because of how broad the topic is and how many pitfalls that we hear, and just not even knowing how to think about it as parents, like it's just too many decisions to make. Like it's easy to vilify technology as this evil because, like you said, there's a long tail of consequences. But when we start thinking of it like a tool and thinking about how do we teach our kids how to handle other tools, it actually becomes easier to and a little bit more manageable in approaching the topic. So one example is that I think many parents could just relate to because it's such a tangible day-to-day is helping your kids or allowing your kids to use more and more of kitchen tools. That's like just an obvious, simple example. With your sixth grader, you're probably not going to let them open the stove and kind of handle hot heavy pots or platters. You're probably not going to let them be on the stove as much. the countertop stove. But as they're learning, you could say, okay, you could do the toaster. Here's how you use the toaster, and have them start to gain independence. Maybe over time, it's, you could load the dishwasher. These are all things that our kids are now doing. And then if they want to, put peanut butter jelly on their sandwich, here's how you could use a butter knife. And then maybe over time, it's the sharper knife. But each of these things, as you're thinking of what is just the intuitive way that you would train your kids to have more responsibility over kitchen tools in the kitchen.
When do they get the machete?
Yeah.
When does that?
Right. But part of it is you start small,
Right.
and you start with teaching, and you start with guidance originally. You're not just like, oh, go ahead and just do the stove. I'm not going to show you how to do it. And the thing is, kids, at least the experience that I've had, is they don't resent that. They appreciate that.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, we want you to be able to use this tool. The stove is awesome. The microwave is great. I don't want to live without the dishwasher. And, the toaster or whatever other appliance we have is a wonderful thing. If you want to learn how to use it, okay, I need to teach you first. And then you need to be aware, if you put your hand on the stove or you grab this, in a certain way, you may get burned.
Yeah.
And so here's some things. I'll monitor you at first. And then over time, oh, it looks like you're handling this really well. Go for it. I don't need to be supervising anymore. So that's sort of an intuitive, natural way. And
That's
I think
good.
if we can apply that to how we talk to our kids about technology, we can frame the whole thing as it's a tool. It's a wonderful tool. It can be a tool used to our advantage. But with any tool, we have to respect it to get the benefit of it. You have to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
And then you may need some guidance at first. And then over time, you get to be able to utilize more and more of it independently.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I'm not sure what things fall in this exact category and what don't, but there's a whole lot of stuff that is innately neutral. And then we get to decide, is it bad or good, right? So fire,
Yeah.
I think fire is like innately neutral. It can be good and it can be devastating. Money is innately neutral.
Right.
Like
yeah.
it's given power based on what we do with our money, for good or for evil. Popularity.
Yeah.
So teenagers who are popular, or anybody who has popularity or fame, is innately neutral until you decide, what am I going to do with the fame? Right? What am I going to do with what's in my hands, so to speak? Money, popularity, tools. And I think technology fits that category of it's innately neutral. And what we choose to do with it, how we choose to navigate it, really does dictate the level of positive or negative influence that technology has on our life.
Right.
Now, I think, we don't want to go down this road necessarily, but I think maybe that's not completely as true today as it was 2 years ago or a year ago, with things like AI being at these ridiculously fast-paced advancements, and all of a sudden, Google or whatever the new AI is going to be, the AI equivalent of Google.
Right.
When you type in facts that you're searching for, it's probably not neutral anymore. It's got biases, and AI is going to reflect the biases and the worldview of whoever is programming that particular AI. So I don't know that AI is inherently neutral, right? And so more than ever, I think, and it's so fascinating how quickly technology advances.
Oh, so fast.
They used to say
You blink.
They used to say it was every 7 years that the technology, like the world's technology, would double every 7 years.
Right.
And I don't know what it is now. I just know it's way, way, way quicker. That things change so fast and everything advances so fast that, which really brings importance. And parents listening, I apologize. I think this is an area. When I say I apologize, I feel sorry for you. That this is an area of parenting that today's parents of teenagers have to pay more attention to than 2 years ago.
Right.
And 5 years ago. And those of you who, Grace, you fall in this category. By the time your sixth grader is in 9th or 10th grade, this conversation is going to be radically different than it is today.
Right.
The conversation won't stay. Back in the day, it's like parents talking about things. There was more time in all of the struggles.
Yeah.
You know, what my parents learned raising kids, a whole lot of that transferred over to advice they could give me raising my kids. Nowadays, from generation to generation of parents, sometimes from oldest child to youngest child, if there's 5 years in between your kids, in that 5 years, how you're navigating and helping your child figure out technology from eldest to next child is going to be completely different.
Right.
See,
Exactly.
this is where I'm saying the Joe Rogan of parenting podcasts,
you talking
right here. I mean, it's without the cursing. It's so good. What you're saying is so true.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm saying. I had one thing on my notes.
No.
Fire.
Fire. Yeah.
And then that sparked me off on everything else.
Well, I was going to say that leads really well into the second point that I wanted to share with parents today is that involve your kids in setting guidelines and encourage critical thinking and self-regulation. And part of that hits on exactly what you said, Kurt. If we are sitting here talking about iPad version, whatever, or this particular technology, it's going to get outdated so fast. But again, if we think of technology as a tool, meaning we are the ones managing the tool isn't owning us. We own the tool. We decide what to do with that tool and how it could benefit us. And if you teach the kids self-critical thinking and self-regulation and you start to build those skills up, that is a trait that can be something that can carry over whatever changes in technology that come.
You just that's gold, Grace. If we want to not get hung up in how do we help our kids navigate every jot and tittle of technology,
Right.
versus no, we're teaching some bigger picture worldview, values, some bigger principles that then apply to technology, and they also apply to other social settings, right?
That's right.
We used to tell parents all the time when Instagram and Twitter, they were never really into Twitter, but Facebook, teenagers were on Facebook, and tell grown-ups, that's the other thing. Teenagers are on something.
Yeah.
And as soon as the adults start going, oh, that's pretty cool, teenagers are like, we're out. You know? if my dad likes it, and Instagram's an example, right? Because they're still on Instagram, but they're all over TikTok. Versus, and as soon as people my age show up at TikTok, teenagers are going, okay, that's our sign. It's time to head on out. But anyway, we used to tell parents about social media is exactly what you just said. Teach your kids principles and how to live life, because what social media is just like school is an arena in which they live. When they go to the movie theater on Friday night with their friends, which they don't do as much as they used to because of technology, right? But we used to say it. That's another arena in which they're living. When they're on the sports field with that's another arena. And you hope that you're teaching them how to behave properly in these. And social media is just now another arena in which they live.
Yes.
Right? So how do you behave? How do you respond?
Right.
How do you treat people?
And you don't have to and it can actually be kind of fun instead of this pressure as a parent. I think one of the challenges with technology is that it's so addicting. Right. That's one of the downsides, traps, is it's just very easy to get caught up and sucked in, and you lose track of time, and it changes our brain wiring too. It's like we need it. We feel like we have to get it. It's an addictive
you need the
quality,
hit.
right? Yeah. But if our job as parents is to always trying to regulate that for our kids from us and saying, no, you can't do that. And they always come to you for permission. Can I watch some TV now? No. Can I be on the iPad now? No. Can I blah, 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 whatever it is, fill in the blank. While you might be able to control the environment for now, ultimately, you want your kids to be able to think through and ask the questions for themselves. Right. What decision do I want to do? So it could be something like on Saturday morning, if your kids say, like very early, can I watch some TV? Now you're thinking in your head, well, what do we have to do today? Do I have to do this? And usually parents are thinking through this in their own heads, and then they give a verdict to the child, yes or no. But another thing a parent who's listening might try is, okay, let me share with you what our plan is later this afternoon. And here are some things that I'm worried about. Like, if you start watching TV now, TV can sometimes change the mood. After kids watch TV, they're a little more grumpy. But as I've had this conversation with my kids where I'll just kind of verbalize the elements. And then I'll say, well, what do you guys think? Here's what's going on in my head. What do you guys think about it? Are you worried about the same thing? Do you think? And actually, they will come up with if you give them the opportunity, they will come up with really great self-regulating parameters. Right. How about we do this first and then we'll watch for 30 minutes, and maybe your kids won't do that right away, and that's okay. The whole point is you're encouraging them to start thinking for themselves. Right. And maybe you still need to be more proactive and involved early, but it's that journey to get them to be able to make good decisions when you're not there.
And it's such a dance, Grace, because I agree with everything you're saying. I agree with everything you're saying. The only time I go, oh gosh, is the phone, the iPad. Mm-hmm. It is such a powerful tool, to use your analogy, that we put in their hands.
Right.
And I can't source this. Grace, you would have sourced this.
Okay.
But
what's the
not
stat?
long ago, I saw this stat. It was a bell curve kind of the level of teenage anxiety, depression, suicide pre-smartphone, and then post-smartphone. And from the moment the smartphone was invented and became more common, it is high into the right. There's not a year that I can remember that it
dipped
shrank.
down.
There's no dipping down. It's just. And so, yes, to everything you're saying. And what I would encourage parents is, I think it's a both and. Because as you're doing that, you got to remember, we're putting and it's like when my son started driving. The first day I didn't really mean to scare him, but I kind of wanted to scare him.
Yeah.
I said he was going to go off on his own. I said, Cole, you are driving a deadly weapon.
Right.
Like you could kill somebody if you're not paying attention to how you use this car. You can get killed if you're not paying. Like, this is in your hands. 16-year-old Cole is a really powerful, potentially deadly tool.
Yes.
And so as we're helping our kids navigate, I do think parents that we have to be smart, and it has to do with their age and maybe the level of trust.
That's right.
That they do or don't have. But there are tools and tips and tricks. And I'm just going to share two kind of no-brainers. But one is the parental controls. In any smartphone, on any iPad, there are parental controls that you can go in as a parent and set and put a passcode, and you can put the parameters. Can the super, super duper savvy kid figure out a way around that? Maybe. But you'll kind of know if they do.
Right.
But sometimes parents are afraid. I just want to trust my kid. I'm going to trust them until they prove that I can't. And by the way, that's not a bad parenting strategy. I'm just saying, is technology the exception to that rule? So maybe you go, no, the consequences are high enough that we're going to operate from the get-go. It's not that I don't trust my kid. I don't trust what everybody's pushing to my child. I don't trust the companies that advertise. I don't trust other people on social media. So I'm going to control this through these settings. And then there's also a whole bunch of apps that parents can load on a device. There's apps that parents can load on their device that track the information, track text messages, track all the stuff. Well, that just seems so invasive. Yeah. You might give your daughter a cell phone when she's in sixth grade. I think you might want to pay a little bit of attention to what's happening on that device.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. If that resonates with you as a parent, a buddy of mine, a guy that used to go to our church years ago, he actually invented an app. It's called Bark, just BARK, like a dog barking. In fact, I think the logo is a little dog barking.
Okay. Yeah.
But Bark has become one of the more popular and probably one of the more like comprehensive apps for parents. Now it is you're invading their privacy. I mean, it's pretty intense, but depending on the age of your child,
yes, right,
and depending on maybe they've had some real serious struggles or hiccups, and you're not going to take technology away.
Right.
At this point, we're not going to live in a technology-free world.
Yeah.
But we might need to regulate it more aggressively from time to time to help it stay a positive tool in our kids' hands
Yeah.
instead of a detrimental one.
Yeah, and I love what you said about yes and, because and it's a dance, but if we can figure out how to put those parameters in, right? Like we said, like I was saying at the beginning, you get more responsibility the more it's not you're a good kid or a bad kid. It's not that. It's as you learn, you're developing your skills, you learn your self-discipline,
Yep.
those types of things, you get more responsibility.
Yep.
But it's always great to have accountability. I mean, even adults, we just
Right.
get sucked in too. But if we can balance those parameters with also encouraging and explaining to the kids why we are doing that, because they understand some of the risks and pitfalls that we get sucked into, it can be less of a battle and less like parents are just invading my privacy.
Right.
It's, oh, I understand because I'm learning how to use this sharp knife to cut my
Right.
vegetables and I
Right.
could cut myself. I have an personal example, like last week, we had, Sam has a men's group that comes over and they meet in the living room. And usually during that time, we'll say, okay, kids, like after you get ready for bed, like you can watch a little bit of iPad. So the kids were in their room, they went to iPad and I was like doing work. And then the next thing I noticed, I'm like in my zone, I'm working. And I noticed, I'm like, oh, I hear the guys getting ready to leave. And I was like kind of confused because usually when they get ready to leave, it's like 10:30. And then I was like, I feel like something's missing. Like, what's happening? And I was like, wait, where are my kids? So I like run into their room and all three of us just look at each other. My two daughters and I were like, wait, what happened? Like, what time is it? What's going on? We all completely lost track of time. They totally got sucked into whatever they were watching. And in their minds, they said, oh, well, we thought you would come get us.
Right.
And in my mind, I was like, yeah, I probably should have. But also, I thought you would come to me because normally they have like a, 8:30
Right.
bedtime routine. And it could have been very easy as a parent at that moment to just be like, hey guys, like you can't do that. You can't watch TV till like 10:30 at night and just kind of shove the blame on them because I'm like feeling like, oh, I failed too. But we had a really good debrief where it was like, wow, this is a real good example of technology can just suck you in.
Yep.
And you think you're in control of it, but it can take over whatever decision you wanted to make and blind it. And so we were able to say, okay, well, what do we do next time? One, we acknowledge that is a pitfall of technology. And two, so my daughters were coming up with things like, okay, we'll set an alarm next time. And I was like, I should probably set an alarm next time because it's just very easy to get sucked in. And that's one example of watching TV. It's a pretty harmless
Right.
example in the grand scheme of things, but just applying that concept of doing that teamwork with your kids, of talking through,
Yep.
this is why we're setting up these parameters.
Right.
This is
Right.
why I'm, looking at this Bark
Yeah.
app, because it's not about trusting you or you're a good kid or you're a bad kid. Is we have this pretty fancy, potentially deadly tool
Yep.
in our hands, and we
Yep.
want to be able to be responsible and
Right.
treat it right so that you don't get harmed and there's max benefit
Yep.
to it.
And I think there's the opportunity to do the hard work on the front end to get some kind of habits in place.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know parents who have a basket and the cell phone goes in the basket as soon as the kids come home from school. It goes in the basket and it doesn't come out of the basket until homework's done. Now, I'm pretty sure that those teenagers fought about that.
Right.
They pushed back on that. But the parents decided, no, that's worth a fight because they need some uninterrupted, like just downtime
Yes.
from text messages and social media, and they need to do their homework. And what that's instilling, though, is now there's a habit of it's okay to not have my phone at my hip all the time.
Right.
I know families who they don't allow their cell phones in the bedroom when it's bedtime. You can be on your cell phone as much as you want. We're just hanging out doing family stuff around the house. But when it's time to get ready for bed and you go into your bedroom, the cell phone stays outside
Yeah.
because we want you to take a break from it. And there's actually a lot of science around that too, like your bedtime routine and your mental hygiene and how much screens hurt your ability to sleep.
Right,
And
right.
a lot of people say, hey, get off all screens, TVs, iPads, computers, everything, about a half hour before you're going to go to bed because
To physically wind
just
down.
to physically
yeah.
wind down. so those are some examples of just like, hey, it's okay to make some tough decisions early on, and you're setting sort of the habit, or you're setting sort of the standard of, hey, in our house with the Johnstons or the Yunes or the Reeds, this is how we navigate, and this is some parameters around our technology. I loved what you said about having them help come up with the guidelines. Producer Chris, if you're a parent, you're going, how do I see some examples of guidelines on? You can go to onpurposeparents.com.
Yeah.
onpurposeparents.com, and like the second box on that screen says resources. And if you click on resources, there's a thing that says
Technology agreement.
technology
right?
agreement.
It's really cool.
And it's really cool. Now, you might not want to just hand that. You could, as written, it's really good. But you might use it as a springboard and say to your children,
Yes, I love that.
We're going to make an agreement that we're both going to sign. So what do you think should be some parameters? What should be some things we agree to for this privilege? Because it is a privilege. Nobody has the right to a cell phone. It's a privilege. What are some things we can agree on, and maybe draft that agreement together? And what's great about that is then when you have to get tough, you can say, gosh, I'm kind of surprised you chose to break the agreement because I know how important the cell phone is, which is why I'm kind of surprised that you chose to have it in your bedroom after bedtime.
Right, yeah.
When we agreed that wasn't acceptable, or whatever the case may be. Just one idea if you're looking for a way to draft some stuff together.
Right. And it can help set up expectations, like you were saying. Like if expectations are broken, there's an understanding of, okay, this is what the natural consequence is. But really, again, for me, and I think this is so important, is you're building in with your kids while they're with you, practice of thinking on their own and thinking critically. And I think sometimes we're afraid to ask them. It's like, okay, well, what do you think it should be? It doesn't mean we concede power as parents. Like if they're like, well, thanks, Mom, for asking. I'd really like to eat ice cream for dinner every day and be on my cell phone and get to watch TV and skip school. And we'll be like, well, thank you so much for your feedback.
Thanks for your input.
Thanks for your input. And in fact, we're not going to do that.
Right.
But I mean, so just by asking the question doesn't mean you're conceding power, but you are like throwing it on them instead of them being like, oh, well, Dad said no, Mom said no. It's like, well, here's what we're wrestling with. Well, what do you think? And then you can see what their answer is. And if their answer is not so bad, or they're coming up with a compromise that you think is reasonable, then maybe you empower them. It's like, okay, let's do that.
Right.
But if it's still a little wonky, then we could say, well, here's what we'll do for now. And we'll try it again. But just building that skill is great. And that tool, I think, being proactive, Kurt, I think is huge as parents, not to abdicate? Obfuscate?
No.
No, what is the word?
Abdicate.
Is it abdicate? We need the dictionary.
You mean like?
Isn't
like
there
when-
an abfugate?
When
Is
the
it-
king abdicates his throne?
Yeah, when you just kind of are like,
I don't know.
somebody,
Sheesh.
some listener, please, who knows their words better, tell us.
Who would know?
Who?
Joe Rogan. He would know.
Or you'd have a guest on.
You
there,
don't
too.
just hand off. You don't vacate.
Yes. You don't just say,
Abandon.
well, like you were saying before, I just trust my child. And because I trust my child, they'll figure it out. And I trust them. I don't want to invade their privacy. So one of my last point was to really be proactive about educating them about the risks and about good online behavior. And this is, to your point, Kurt, there is a real risk with this tool of technology. And just like you can get burned on a stove, you can get burned with technology. And that stat is really scary about, rates of depression, especially with girls, teenage girls shooting up with things like social media. We have online safety issues, cyberbullying. I think it's really important to not have that concept be learned from outside factors if you can have the opportunity to share them with your kids and be a voice. So I found this research survey by Pew, and it found that 59% of teens have personally experienced at least one of 6 types of abusive online behavior. And so these could be things like offensive name calling, or spreading of false rumors, or receiving explicit images that they didn't ask for. So there's all these different types of things that could happen in the online world. And they also did, this is just interesting. It was like, where are people cyberbullied? And Instagram was actually the highest, followed by Facebook. And then there was Snapchat. And so my point is not to like rag on any of these social media platforms or vilify any of them, but it is important as parents to be educated and to be informed and then talk to your kids about it. And one of the things that I was reading about was you should define and describe what cyberbullying, for example, I'll use cyberbullying as the topic, what it is, so that your kids can actually recognize it when it happens. And so hopefully it doesn't happen to them, but if they do, or if it does happen to them or they see it, they know what's happening. So because as a teenager, you're experiencing so many things for the first time. You don't know what's normal, what's not normal. You might feel uncomfortable, but is this like okay uncomfortable, or is this like so by having a parental voice that says, this is actually not okay. If this happens to you, you need to come tell me or tell someone that you trust. And it really makes a difference, I think, to have that clarity and standard spoken to by the parents from the get-go. One of the things that I read that was interesting was to encourage your kids to come talk to you and assure them that they won't lose privileges. Because one of the stats is kids sometimes don't come to parents because they fear that somehow they're going to get punished.
Right.
And they'll lose technology privileges.
Yep. If I show my mom what this person said about me on Instagram,
Yeah.
she's going to take my phone away.
Right.
So it's not worth it.
It's not worth it. Yeah. And that's something as parents we'll have to grapple with ourselves too, because part of us might be like, that's it. Cut technology off forever. We're going to kind of live in a cave. But if you want your child to talk to you about something that's happening online that's not safe, or just not safe, you'll want to assure them they're not going to get punished.
Right.
And so talk to me. That's the number one priority, is that we have communication.
Yeah, that's good. As we wrap up, when we sat down, we each had these 3 or 4 very clean bullet points. This is such a nuanced conversation that we're just kind of talking around it. And hopefully parents, as you're listening, you're going, oh, that's a nugget. That's a nugget. Oh, that makes sense. One last thought is, and I think this is more than just technology, but the idea of, with certain purchases, a car, an e-bike, a cell phone, chances are, not every parent, but a lot of parents are paying for the cell phone. They bought the cell phone and they're paying the monthly payment for the service. A lot of I see so many junior hires on e-bikes. I don't think that many junior hires drop $2,500 of their own money, right? Mom and dad got it because it's convenient and there's upsides to it, to an e-bike. First cars, a whole lot of parents pay for the first car. One thing to think about would be the bigger the expense and the more consequence if it gets squirrely. You might, parents, not want to say, hey, we bought this for you. We're giving you this. Hey, here is your cell phone. Here is your e-bike. Here is your first car, you 16-year-old, right? Instead, maybe consider saying, hey, we bought this, but it's we're letting you use it. We're letting you borrow it. Nobody else in the family is going to borrow it. You get to borrow it, but we bought it. We own it. And that way, if and when there's a time where you feel like I have to take that cell phone away, you're not taking away your teenager's cell phone. You're just saying, you know what? Remember, we bought it and we were letting you utilize it, and you've shown us that for this season, you're not handling our property the way that you should.
Right. Yeah. Hey, it's a tool that might be a little bit too big for you right now.
It's not your e-bike. We let you use it, but it's our e-bike that we've kind of assigned to you to use. But man, you're showing us that you never wear your helmet. You're zipping around, running old ladies over. We're getting phone calls from people, the neighbors saying you're riding your e-bike through their flower beds. Like we're gonna take back our e-bike for a little while.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That's it's not your e-bike. It's ours. Anyway, just maybe a little tweak in the parenting strategy so that if you have to have the tough conversation, you relinquished a little bit of control of your property. Now you're taking it back for a season.
Yeah. That's good.
Wow. My, oh my, oh my. There's a lot to this. Here's what I would wrap it up with, you guys. And I'll go back to what Grace started with. Technology is an awesome tool.
It is.
We're not going backwards. We're not advocating.
Is that okay? Wait,
no. I'm using it. No, I'm using
advocating.
no, but I'm using advocating.
Oh, you did mean to say advocating.
Yes, I did. We're not advocating.
Okay.
Having no technology.
Right.
We're pro technology. The benefits are amazing. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool. Help your kids, help your teenagers, help your adolescents. You learn how to use the tool properly. Have conversations around the tool. Have guidelines, agreed upon guidelines around the tool, and be willing to have some consequences and a little bit of pain when things get out of control and you need to dial it back. And if you can just kind of hold on to those thoughts, parents, I think that might help you as you navigate the ever-changing world of technology. Real quick, before we sign off, if you're watching us on YouTube, right up there on the screen is a recommended episode of ours. Right below that is where you can click and see all of our podcasts. And right here, if you want to subscribe, you can hit subscribe.
Yeah.
That will push, I don't even know how subscriptions work. We push it into there.
Just smash it.
Just smash it.
You know,
Smash it, like it.
In the show notes, we're gonna put a link to Bark. Okay,
Perfect.
so we'll put a link there.
Awesome.
And then you had a buddy that wrote a book.
Yeah, but I don't know what it's called right now.
Okay, I'll find that
We'll
out.
find
That
it.
might be in there.
It's
also.
actually, yes, it's a very easy read helping your teenagers navigate technology. It's
And then-
old though. It's 7 or 8 years old, which means
Oh my gosh.
it might be outdated already.
Yeah, I mean, it's talking about MySpace and stuff.
Yes. It's talking about how long should the cord on your phone be? Should you let your teenager carry the phone from the wall to his bedroom?
Hey, we're going to put our resource in there, a link for our resource, and also we have a blog post that's in there that'll be helpful too.
Yep.
Amazing.
Thanks everybody.
Wonderful.
We'll see you next time around.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.